Well, hello and welcome to another episode of WaltInPA. My name is Walt, and I'm doing a nice little evening ride here on this beautiful, I don't even know what day it is, Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, Friday evening, here in Montgomery County. I think we're going to head on over to Berks County today, a little loop that I haven't really done before. But the topic of today's motovlog is work. Now, I don't want to bore you with work drama or anything like that. I just want to give you, I don't know, kind of a peek into my everyday life, give you some information on what I do for a living and an interesting position I found myself in just recently, because I think the decision that I made may be different than the one that, well, most people would have made. So this is going to be a long one. I have a feeling it's going to be a long one. Might want to grab yourself a drink, maybe a little snack, and let's get to it.
Hey guys, Moto Ramblings here, coming at you live from the beautiful mountains of western North Carolina. And you're watching Walt in PA. Stay happy, y'all.
Well, I think when it comes to this one, it's best to start from the beginning. And this one goes way back. So, when I grew up in Philadelphia in a townhouse, or a townhouse. That's the fancy new word for it. I grew up in a row home in a bad part of the city. And while we weren't poor, we definitely weren't well off. And we were the type of family that we didn't really do gifts or extravagant things unless it was a special occasion like a birthday or Christmas. So if I wanted something like rollerblades to play roller hockey with my buddies, or if I wanted a bicycle, you know, if Christmas or my birthday wasn't in sight, I had to figure out how I was going to come up with the money to do that. I had to work for it. And I'm kind of proud of that fact. So I started working when I was pretty young. I must have been maybe 10 years old when I got my very first real job at a commercial cabinet shop. My father was the supervisor there, and basically I just wanted to work a couple of days a week, earn some cash money so that I could buy myself whatever it was I was looking to buy at the time. So my job there was basically just to push a broom and clean up the shop, and I was doing that 2, maybe 3 days a week, and I think I was making, I don't know, 30, 40 bucks under the table, cash. It wasn't a hard job, but it was something to do to you know, earn a few bucks. And early on, I don't know whether I was just like up late the night before I was supposed to work, or I don't know what the case was, but I didn't want to get out of bed, and I was giving my dad a hard time, and he was not happy about it. And it wasn't until later on that day that my mom explained it to me that, you know, I was the boss's son, I was being held to a higher standard, and my dad saw that as, I don't know, me kind of not necessarily making him look bad, but kind of going against his reputation for the work ethic that he's had for, you know, all of his life. Basically, my dad goes to work unless he's bedridden. You know, there's very few occasions when he doesn't go into work. He just makes it happen. And he expected that from me, even at a young age. So that was the first and last time that happened. And, you know, I worked whatever it was, 2-3 days a week, pushing a broom. And I was happy to do it for the money. Well, I did that job for a couple of years. I think I was about 12 when my dad got an offer to be a supervisor at a bigger shop, pretty much doing the same thing, but higher volume, more people to supervise. It was definitely a step up in his career. And basically, I wanted to do the same thing when summer vacation rolled around from school. Like, hey, Dad, can you get me a job? I want to make some money this summer and buy myself a bike, or, you know, whatever it was I wanted to buy. But because this place was bigger, they wanted to do things by the book, which meant I had to go get working papers. So my dad brought home a couple of sheets of paper one day, He hands them to me and he says, I need you to get on the L, take it down to Spring Garden Street, walk however many blocks it was to the administration building, give these papers to the lady behind the desk, and have her sign them. That turned into a little adventure. It's a totally other story. But I get down there, I give the lady the papers, and she gives me this incredulous look. I still remember it to this day. And she says, "You can't work in a factory, you're 12 years old." Like she just uncovered some sort of child labor ring. So I'm kind of bummed out. I take the papers home to my dad, I tell him what happened. He crumples them up, tosses them in the trash can, says, yeah, we'll see what we can do. The next day he comes home with new papers. He says, do the same thing, take these down there, give these papers to the lady. So I took the papers down, they signed them, they gave me the green light to be an office boy, which basically meant I was going to clean up the shop as usual, and then once a day I would go into the office and empty out the trash cans. So it was a creative solution. And I wound up working there for a couple of years, maybe 3-4 years, full-time in the summer. And the cool thing that I learned early on was if I kept on top of my job and I got it done, which wasn't really hard to do considering I was there 5 days a week, that they would need to find something for me to do. And usually they would send me over to shipping and receiving to clean or pack cabinets. And if I ran out of work over there, then they'd send me over to assembly and I'd get to put hardware on the cabinets. Basically, I'd put on pulls and knobs, anything that required a screwdriver, because I was obviously too young to be working machines. And it was great, you know, that became my summer job. I'd work with my dad during the week, then I'd go work at my uncle's bar on the weekends, cleaning up. And, you know, all was well, you know. I was a young kid with a job, and I was able to buy my own stuff. I was really proud of that. So later on, I went to high school, and I decided that I wanted to get into cabinet making. I was already sort of involved in the wood industry, you know, working in a commercial cabinet shop, albeit I was, you know, pushing a broom most of the day. But I thought I thought I had a head start. So I wound up taking cabinet making in high school. In fact, it was a pretty big head start. I did really well in that class. And the instructor that I had was pretty much everything you would imagine from like a movie woodshop teacher. You know, this guy was crass, he was crude, foul language came out on more than one occasion, and he didn't pull any punches. That's why the students loved working with this guy, because, you know, he treated them like adults, and he expected you to act like an adult. You know, you were there to learn a trade. And I don't know whether he saw that as you were a representation of the way he taught or the things that he taught, but he was very serious about cabinet making. And he taught you anything that you wanted to know. So, you know, you could go in there and you could kind of coast if you wanted to and learn how to build a birdhouse or whatever. But if you came to him and said, look, I want to build this vanity for my bathroom at home, and I want it to have a curved front with curved drawer fronts, and you know, I want this feature, and I want that feature, and I want this elaborate molding, he would go all in, and he would teach you how to do all of that stuff. And as he was teaching it to you, he expected you to learn it, and I respected him for it. He taught me an awful lot. Now, in the school that I went to, they had this program that they called co-op, which basically allowed you to get a full-time job in your senior year and go to work in place of going to class. And what that meant was I could get paid to earn a grade in school. So, you know, I got a job in a commercial cabinet shop making, you know, plastic laminate particle board cabinets for big office fit outs and banks and retail outlets. And I was earning money while earning a grade in school. It was awesome. And I wound up staying there for about 5 years or so after I graduated. And it was here that I learned a very valuable lesson in life. So that lesson came one day. I was in the shop building, I was making bar rail. Now, if you're not familiar with bar rail, it's basically that big wooden molding that you lean your elbows on whenever you sit at a bar. Now, the stuff that I was making, it wasn't overly complicated, but they didn't have just anyone make it because it was kind of tricky. You used a ton of clamps, and parts had to be cut before they went through the molding machine to be shaped. And if you didn't do it right, it turned into more work in the end. So I was one of like maybe 2 or 3 people that they had make it on a regular basis. So one day I'm out there making bar rail, and this customer comes in to buy like 50 feet of it or something like that. I just happened to be making it, so the production manager brings the guy over and shows how we make it and stuff like that. Well, as it turns out, that guy was a supervisor at a different wood shop. Basically, they were just outsourcing it to us so that they could install it on a bar that they were building. Well, that guy wound up offering me a job for $1 more an hour. I don't know whether he just envisioned me being able to make the bar rail for him direct, or what the case was, but I saw dollar signs when he said, oh, you know, we'll give you $1 more an hour. I jumped at it, put my 2 weeks notice in. I walked away from a company that I'd been with for 5 years, and I started fresh at a new job, and it was the worst job I've ever had. And it wasn't because I didn't like what I was doing. It was just simply, I hated that place. Because I was still young, they didn't trust me around the machines, so suddenly I'm back to pushing a broom, emptying trash cans, helping wipe stain on and back in finishing. It sucked. And the worst part of it was the owner. So this business was set up, so the building was just a standard 2-story building. The offices were up on the 2nd floor. And out behind the building, they constructed like a pole building as an addition. So with the offices upstairs, there was this giant bay window in the owner's office. And it overlooked the shop. And there were days when the owner would stand in the window, grab the PA system mic, and basically start heckling the employees. You know, you're not working fast enough. Why does it take 2 guys to read blueprints? You know, why are you doing this? Why are you laughing? Stop laughing, get to work. You're having too much fun. And it made me and, well, a lot of the other guys miserable. I hated that job so much that I quit within 6 months. I was just miserable. I was missing a lot of work. I wasn't happy. If the wind blew the wrong direction, I was calling out of work sick. So I wasn't happy there. They weren't happy with me. It was just a miserable situation. And one day I called them up and I said, hey, I'm not coming in, but I will be in later to clean out my tools. I'm done. And that was that. I walked away from that place with 0 prospects. Didn't have any other job lined up, and I didn't even care. There was some concern there because, you know, up until that point I had had a full-time job for a long time. And it was strange to think about walking away from it all, but I wasn't happy, and I knew I had to do something about it. So I was out of work for about a week when I came across an ad in the paper for a local cabinet shop. So I applied, I went down there, I met the owner, nice guy, and they did residential work. They built custom entertainment centers. So if you remember years ago, before TVs got flat and skinny, everyone had these giant console TVs. And if you were well off, you would buy these built-in entertainment centers that ran from floor to ceiling. And they would have, you know, like integrated bookshelves, DVD storage, CD storage, AV cabinets storage, and then the centerpiece would be this big TV. So I got back to learning like I did in high school when I was in Votech, and things became really fun again. I worked there for about 5 years, before I decided that I wanted to run my own business at some point. You know, I wanted to have my own cabinet shop. I wanted to build my own furniture. It's something that I thought would make me happy. But as an employee, I would watch the owner of the company, and he would work all day in the shop building cabinets, building furniture, and then he would spend his evenings drafting cabinets and furniture, designing, you know, drafting and designing cabinets and furniture. And it just didn't seem like fun, you know, to work all day and then work all night. So basically, I thought I could cut the time in half by learning AutoCAD. So I went to this local technical institute and I signed up for night classes. So I spent 2.5 years working from 7 till 4, you know, whatever our schedule was, at the cabinet shop, and then I would race home, get something to eat really quick, get a shower so that I wasn't covered in sawdust, and then I would drive 45 minutes to school, and then I would be there until 11 o'clock at night. You know, it was a long process that lasted for 2.5 years before I got my associate's degree. And in that time, I was starting to get a little bitter. You know, I went from working 60, 70, 80 hours a week at this small cabinet shop because I was doing a little bit of everything. You know, I was building cabinets, I was finishing cabinets, I was helping install, I was doing a little bit of maintenance around the building. Whenever a machine broke, I would learn how to fix it. And, you know, suddenly my hours dropped to 40 hours a week. There was some tension there, and I thought, you know, I don't want this relationship to sour. So I decided to make a career change. I was already going to school to learn AutoCAD, so I thought, you know what, I can probably get a job as a cabinet engineer and do drafting for a cabinet shop. So that's what I did. I wound up getting a job at the place I worked at out of high school. They hired me as a drafter. I took a pay cut, which sucked, but, you know, bigger and better things were in my future, I thought. So I spent my days basically drawing up and engineering plastic laminate casework for big office fit-outs, banks, you know, retail establishments, that sort of thing. And it was really good. I mean, the owners of the company treated me really well. And in that time that I was there for 11 years, I was only laid off once, and that was maybe 4 or 5 years into my time there. And basically what had happened was the economy crashed, the construction industry wasn't doing very well, and there just wasn't enough work to support 2 drafters, so they wound up laying off the one with less seniority. Well, not wanting to be out of a job long, I put together a resume and I put it on Indeed, just in case, you know, things dragged out and I wanted to look for work elsewhere. Well, they called me back within a month, and then I never thought about that resume thing ever again. Well, after I was there for 11 years, one day out of the blue, I get an email from a recruiter who had found my resume. I mean, my resume was way out of date. I almost thought it was a joke, like this guy's contacting me for an engineering position, but my resume is laughably old. So I kind of disregarded it. You know, at that point, I knew that it was time for a change of scenery. I had gone as far up the company ladder as I could possibly go. And I was beginning to get a little burned out at that point. So I kind of stewed over it for a couple of days, and I thought, you know, I'm going to go ahead and get back to this recruiter. The worst thing that can happen is he's going to offer me a position that I hate, and I just won't take it. So I set up a meeting with the guy, met with him, real nice, told me that he had 3 positions that he was trying to fill. The one that paid the most was down outside of Philadelphia, and I didn't want to deal with the traffic, so I told him that one was out. And he said, there's this other one that's closer to you, but I think that I don't think their pay is right. I think it's too low. So that one was out. And then there was this other one that was a little bit further away, but the pay was decent. And he said, based on your experience, I think we can get you a little bit more money. So I thought, awesome, let's do it. So we set up an interview. I went out, I met the production manager. We got along pretty well. Because I had been in the cabinet industry for so long, we knew some of the same people, which was kind of cool. And, you know, they were happy to give me the position. So I started working there, and this place was a residential kitchen manufacturer, high-end custom kitchens. Slightly scary how high-end this place is, or what is. Basically, the base cabinet that you have in your kitchen, the basic one with the drawer and a single door, we charge more for that than I paid for my first car. That's just kind of to put things in a little perspective. And they did really high-end, one-off, custom, just custom stuff, and it was fun. And, you know, it was a really nice change of pace from commercial work, and I've been there for 3 years now. So the part of the story that I want to tell you about is something that just happened recently. You know, like that, I don't know, I guess this was a really long-winded way of leading up to this part. So the production manager that hired me is no longer with the company. He's working somewhere else. Well, the company that he's working for is doing really well. They're expanding. They're getting into a new, bigger facility. And they have an opening for an engineer. So they reached out to me to see if I'd be interested. Now, when I got the message, I wasn't thrilled. I mean, the company I work for is a little rocky. It's had its moments, some tense moments, but I like working there. I like the work. I like the owner. He's a really good guy. He treats us, well, I don't know how he treats everyone else, but he's always treated me with respect and always kind of looked out for me. So I really appreciate that. So I really wasn't eager to leave. So I was kind of like politely hem-hawing and struggling to make a decision. And then, I don't know, after about a week, I got a follow-up message that gave me the impression that the job was mine if I wanted it. I just needed to go down there and meet the owner and kind of go through the motions. So I thought, you know, I think I'm going to need to like make a hard decision and actually do something about this. So I got on the phone with the owner of the company that I work for, and I said, hey, we need to have a meeting. Do you have time today? And he said, yeah, sure, you know, we'll meet, we'll get together this afternoon. So I drove into the office, we sat down, and I explained the situation. I said, you know, look, I've been getting messages that from one of your competitors, they want me to come work there. You know, they haven't given me a formal offer, they're just trying to get me to come in for an interview. However, you know, but you know, before we get any further, I want to make it clear that I am not pitting you against your competitor to try to make as much money as I can off of this whole situation. I said, that's not what this is at all. I said, I just wanted to make you aware of the situation. I have a difficult decision to make. I've pretty much made it already, but we've had some rocky points with the business. Things are a little slow. I want to ensure that, you know, there's no layoff in the coming months, because basically we just got rolling again a couple months back from the COVID shutdowns. The Pennsylvania governor ordered all non-essential businesses closed, so we were out of work for about 2.5 months, and I don't qualify for unemployment. So it put me in a tricky spot where I ate up my savings pretty quickly. So I really couldn't weather I'm not looking forward to trying to weather another layoff. And he understood that. And I said, you know, it would be foolish of me not to realize that I'm in demand, so I have a couple of reasonable requests. So, you know, we talked about the workload coming up, and, you know, he explained that he's really happy with me and he wants to keep me on board, and he appreciates that I'm not pitting him against his competitor to make money. And, you know, I gave him my reasonable requests. He was happy to grant them. And I think we both walked away happy. You know, I think I showed him respect. He showed me respect. And, you know, that's kind of where I wonder a little bit. Because in today's culture, things aren't like they used to be. You know, when I was young, you know, I would talk to my grandfather and my great uncle, my grandfather's brother. And, you know, they made it clear that to be successful, you really wanted a union job, something with a retirement, with a pension. And that just doesn't happen anymore. You know, we've got these 401k programs. Some employers contribute to them. Some employers don't contribute to them. You know, right, wrong, or otherwise. You know, however you feel about it. But we're in a culture now where people are more likely to hop from job to job to make more money or progress, and they're less likely to stick with an employer long term because a lot of times there isn't a huge incentive to staying with a company for long periods of time. Sometimes it's more beneficial from a financial standpoint to uproot and start fresh at a new company that's willing to give you more money than you're making now. So I wonder a little bit, like, you know, if you were in a similar position, given whatever job you work right now, if you were offered a position at a competing company, how would that play out for you? Would you put in your notice? Would you sit down with your employer like I did and talk it out? Or would you try to make as much money as you could and play, you know, pit one company against the other company? I can't fault anyone for wanting to do that. It's just not something that I felt comfortable doing. It's not, you know, with the way the company has treated me over the years, I didn't think that would have been very fair. Now, granted, it's not always about fair, but it's just one of those situations where, you know, I thought common courtesy and respect was due. So that's it. This really, really long-winded story about my work history, my work ethic, and, you know, an interesting situation that I found myself in recently. So now you know a little bit more about me, and that's always fun. So with that said, thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider clicking on the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to click on that bell notification, and it'll give you an alert anytime new content is posted to my channel. So as always, thank you very much for all of the support. Thank you very much for watching this video through till the end. Greatly appreciate that. Ride safe, and I will catch you in the next one.